Welcome to an RPG in a Box Basics video tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about ladders and other general climbable objects. So with that said, let's get started. So let's start with, how do you model a climbable object? So the first thing you need to know about a climbable asset is it needs to be a tile, not an object, okay? So if you started to model a climbable asset as an object, you're going to need to make it a tile, okay? If you already have an object that is supposed to be a tile, you can open it up in the voxel editor. So this is currently an object, you can tell by the tree symbol. And you can click this button here, Save As, and it will allow you to change it from being an object to a tile, and then you'd give it a name and then you'd save it. And this will now become a tile version of this model, complete with all the frames and animations and all of that. So, but if you're starting from scratch, or if you're importing from the asset library, obviously any ladders in the asset library will be already set up, okay? So they need to be tile first and foremost, okay? So if we open up this metal ladder here that I made earlier, this needs to be, and it is, a tile, and you can tell that by the ground path symbol, tells you it's a tile, okay? The reason it needs to be a tile, not an object, is because objects do not contain navigational data. So when you place them in the map editor, when you're doing grid movement games that use these lines, they're not going to use the lines. Whereas when you place tiles, specifically if they're passable, they will automatically link up and also even be able to contain these lines. Going back to our ladder, we need to make this ensure that this is a tile, not an object. As well as that, when you make the ladder model or climbable model, it needs to be impassable. Now I've made a mistake here because I accidentally clicked the passable button. But if you're going to create a new ladder, let's say we create a tile and we call it ladder free, let's say, just in case I've got a ladder 2. I don't think I do, but no, okay, I don't. So we create something called ladder 2. When this comes up, you need to click impassable, okay? So, where's ladder 2 gone? I think I need to delete it. There it is. So we'll close ladder 2 and delete it. So, once you've made your tile that is impassable, then you can model your climbable object, in this case, a ladder, okay? The next thing that models need is an attach point. Okay, the climbable models need is an attach point, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the attach point editor, make sure that we're on an add rather than select, and then you just click somewhere on the ladder. It really doesn't matter where yet, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to move it in a moment anyway. So just click somewhere on the model, and then it needs to be called climb, all in lowercase, okay? It needs to have a very specific name in order for it to work as a climbable object. Okay, so click OK, and now we've created a climb attach point. So this is now effectively all you need to do to make a climbable asset in the voxel editor. It needs to be a tile, it needs to be impassable, and it needs to have an attach point called climb. Other than that, the rest of it is up to you, how it looks and all of that. So, and the size of it in terms of the dimensions, that's entirely up to you. Okay, so let's save that's our model done. Now, before we get to anything else, let's talk about why impassable is such an important setting, okay? When you place tiles by default in the voxel editor, not in the voxel, in the map editor, sorry. When you place tiles by default, you'll see that they add these green lines. Every time I place a tile, it links them up if it can. So that first one over there was diagonal, so it couldn't. But as soon as I placed that one, it then linked them both up, okay? So we undo that. So every time you place a passable tile, so this grass one here is passable, okay? Every time you place a passable tile, it will connect the navigation up. As long as, in the map tools section, this auto connect navigation option is on. Obviously, if I turn that off, then now it won't do that. But by default, this is on, and typically you usually want this on because it means that as you place tiles, it's also connecting them up. It's just a quality of life thing. But if I place a impassable object down onto a tile that has navigation, you'll see it deletes the navigation. That's what an impassable object does. It first of all doesn't have any navigation in and of itself, but also if you place it down on tiles that have navigation, it will clear them to make it impassable. Because in grid mode, what makes something impassable is not the physical object itself, it's the lines. So when you make something impassable or passable, it's just, does the tile when you place it down have lines automatically, i.e. does it auto connect them up if this option is on, wherever the option is, it's on the place, this option is on, or does it delete them or just not have them when you place it down? That's what the impassable setting, that's all it does, okay? Now, the reason why you want impassable on a ladder or a climbable object is because if we didn't have this setting on, so let's just put this, well, let's leave it as it is at the moment because I need to change it, but if we still had it as a passable object, okay, when we place our ladder down, you see how at the moment, if we take a look at these navigation lines, if I hover over them, okay, when I hover over the white dot, it's pulsating, okay, and same here, it's pulsating, okay. If I now place the ladder down up against the wall and just click, I'm not even directly touching this pointer to this white dot at all. I'm placing this ladder against this wall. If I click, I've now placed that ladder, okay. If I hover over the same dot, so this one, remember, if I go back to navigation tool, this one, these dots are sort of pulsating. But if I hover over this one, it's now a faint glow. And if I now hover over the ladder, it's pulsating, which means what it's done is it's connected the ladder to these lines. Why? Because it's passable. So when you place a passable tile, it tries to auto-connect the navigation. So what it's done is it's connected this line invisibly up to the ladder, which is going to create problems because it's going to basically think that this ladder is a floor and you can stand on it and things like that. It's just going to create problems, okay? So if you have issues with ladders, make sure the first thing is it impassable? Make sure it's an impassable object, okay? So in my case, I need to change this to impassable and save it. So make sure when you make your tile, tick the impassable box, not the passable button, okay? So we'll come back to navigation in a moment. This is all part of, if you want to know a bit more about the navigation issue that I just talked about with these white dots and what they're linked up to, refer to my navigation basics video, and I'll talk a bit more in detail there about things you need to be aware about these lines and where they're placed to where issues can arise, especially around walls. Okay, and that's the same thing with the ladder. Okay, so now let's get back to actually making our climbable objects, or tiles in this case. Okay, so we've just made our climbable model. Now, what do player models need in order to make climbing work? Let's take a look at the player model. So if we load base Justin up in the voxel editor, so a player model, or an NPC, whatever, needs 3 things in order for climbing to work. Some of them might be optional, but obviously if you want it to look good, you're going to need basically all of these 3 things. First of all, you need some frames of animation that make it look like your character's climbing, okay? Now, in the case of this model, we just quickly find out what they are. They're 24 and 26. So if I just quickly go through the frames until I get to 24. So here we go. So it's these 3 frames here, 1, 2, and 3, 24, 25, 26. You can see them down here in the bottom as I go back and forth. So it's these 3 frames here, 24, 25, 26, okay? And you can see they're of the type ping pong. So basically it goes to 25 and then goes back to goes to 26, then goes back to 24, goes to 26 on a loop, okay? That's the type of animation that it is. So what you want to do is you want to create either a looping animation or a ping pong animation that shows your character climbing, okay? However many frames you want, you know, make sure it's at least, you know, it looks like they're climbing, okay? As well as that, you then need to encapsulate those frames into an animation. So what you would do is you'd click the add button here to add an animation, and then you'd give it the name climb, and it needs to have that name in order to be used by the engine when you climb a climbable object. Okay, I call it object. I'm going to refer to it as object from now on just because it's easier in my brain, but remember it's a tile, not an object. Okay, but in order to visually, and well, in order for climbing to work, you need a climb animation. Okay, now it's a predefined animation name, so you don't have to type it. You can click the magnifying glass and look for climb in here and just select it, click OK, and then set the frames here. So in this case, it would be 24 to 26, and then it would be either loop or ping pong, depending on how you've designed the animation. Okay, obviously I'm not going to save this because it's already got one, so we'll click cancel. Okay, so that's two of the three things you need. You need frames of an animation for your climbing. You then need to wrap those frames into an animation called climb. And then the last thing you need is on each of those 3 frames, in this case, or however many frames are in your climb animation. Let's say you had 10, let's say. In each frame of your 10-frame climb animation needs to have an attach point, which this one has just here, called climb, just exactly the same as it was on the climbable tile. Okay, so like on our ladder object, we placed a climb attach point. Then on every frame of your player model for the climb animation, it only needs to be on the climb frames. It doesn't need to be anywhere else in your model, like attack or walk or anything like that. But in your climb animation, for all of the frames, there needs to be a climb attach point, okay, named exactly the same. So if we go down to attach points, we can see we got head, ignore that, but we've got the climb one, okay, which is this one here. Okay, and those are the 3 things that you need to make player models work in for climbable objects, okay, climbable assets. So the next thing we need to do to make climbables work is we need to make sure that the player and the climbable asset, in this case the ladder, line up properly. Now there's 1 or 2 ways you can do this. One way is to just now place the ladder and set it up, and then play the game, and then climb the ladder and see how you're offset from the ladder, and then move the player around and go back and forth and everything until it lines up. I think I found a better way of doing it, so I'm going to show you, in my opinion, the better way of doing it. I'll show you how to make it first, but I'm not actually going to use the one we make because I've made one earlier, okay? But what you want to do is you just want to find one of the frames of your climb animation. It really doesn't matter which. So I'm going to go for the middle one. I'm just going to make sure the climb attach point does not move between any of the frames. It's in the same position. Yeah. I'll just do the center one. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to remember that frame number. So in this case, it's frame 25. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the end, okay, of the whole animation timeline. And I'm going to start deleting frames till I get to 25, till the number says 25. There we go. Okay, so I've deleted all of the frames on the right-hand side of 25. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the beginning, and I'm now just going to press delete until it says frame 1 of 1. What that does is it means that's the only frame now. I've isolated a model that's only got that frame. No other frames exist. I'm also going to delete all the animation names. We don't need them. I'm going to delete the head attach point. We don't need it. So let me just select the head attach point, press delete. Okay. And then here's the important bit. Don't get this wrong. You're going to click save as, not save. If you click save, this is going to save your player model with all the frames deleted and everything like that. So don't click save. Click save as. We're going to make this an object, and then you will call this something like climb test, climb preview, whatever you want to call it. Let's say climb preview. Okay, click OK, and it will save that frame. And then just double check by closing it and open your player model again. Make sure it's still got all your frames and animations and everything. Great. So the reason we did that is because in the voxel editor, you cannot attach characters to models, to objects. You can attach objects to characters, but in this case, that would be the wrong way around. I mean, you might be able to do it that way, but that might not be the way it works in the map editor, so it's not a true way of lining things up. What we want to do is we want to line our player up with the ladder, but we can't do that because the player character can't be attached in the voxel editor. It works like that in game, but it doesn't work like that in the voxel editor. However, what you can do in the voxel editor is attach objects to objects or objects to tiles, okay? So in this case, what we've done is we've made an object of our player model for the frame of climbing with the attach point still of climb. We've made sure we didn't delete this, and this is still in the exact same position in space because it's the exact same frame as it is on the player model, okay? So when the player model gets to this frame in their animation, it's going to be in exactly the same spot with the exact same attach point positioning on the player as it is in this object, okay? So if we line this object up with the ladder, then in game, it will be the same with the player, okay? So that's what we're basically going to do. We're going to use this as a preview so we can line this model up with the ladder so that in game, the player will be lined up with the ladder, okay? This kind of removes the trial and error from it, okay? So what we want to do is go back to our metal ladder, and we want to click the preview or configure attached objects effects. I call it the preview button, but we're going to click this, and there's only one attach point on the ladder, so that's the only one we can use. So we're going to use the climb attach point. We want our climb preview model to be the one we attach, and it's only got one attach point, so we're going to use its climb attach point to connect these two together. We don't want to automatically attach in game, otherwise when you go into game, we'll already have a duplicate model of the player attached to the ladder, which would be a bit odd. So we're just going to click OK. And this allows us to immediately see that if we were to go into game and play this, this would be wrong. If we started to climb the ladder, this would look absolutely wrong. But now we can use this to correct it. So we can see the player, or the player model in this case. So what we can do now is we can select the attach point. This is the ladder's attach point, not the player's not the player model's attach point. We'll select the ladder's attach point and we'll make some changes. So first of all, we need to scroll down to the attach point settings. We need to rotate it on the Z axis 180, so the player is at least facing the right way. And then if we need to, we can make some minor adjustments to the positioning as well. So we can use these arrows to just move the player a bit more center, maybe up a tad just so his hands are on the rung, maybe something like that, and maybe back just a tad, or maybe not. Maybe we'll leave it like that, okay? Once you've lined it up, click Save and make sure that's absolutely saved, and then you can click the Configure button, turn the player model off, set it to none, click OK, and that should be your ladder done. So that attach point now is set so that in game, when the player attaches, it should look exactly like it did just a second ago with our preview object, okay? So that should be how to line up and preview how your player's going to work on the ladder, okay? Let's now go to the map editor. Now let's talk about how ladders are placed in relation to walls. This is something that, might be a given to some people, but I just want to sort of talk about, the significance of tiles and how they work. If you're new to RPG in a Box completely, it's just something to go over. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate this is I'm going to delete one of these tiles. In fact, let's make it more central. Let's delete this one. And I'm going to place a red warning tile, let's say, just so we got something to focus on. Okay, so this tile here, this is where we want to place our ladder. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to place it up against a wall, right? So that we go up a wall. So what we want to do is we want to select the wall that we want to go up. So let's place the wall there. Great. And then we're going to place our ladder down. Great. The wall's just gone and our ladder's replaced it. Okay. So this is what I want to talk about, because some people might have this issue and not know why it's happening, how to fix it, and etc. Okay. So to explain how this is, why it's doing this, we need to go quickly back into the voxel editor and take a look at the ladder, but also the wall. Okay. So this is the voxel ladder. So I've covered it before in my basic series, but this is what I call the volume, okay? It's like the sort of the grid, the 3D grid where your models are obviously made, okay? So here we have the front plane. This is the right plane, the left plane, the back plane, top plane, and the bottom plane, okay? I've made this wall up against the back plane, okay? I've also done the same thing with the ladder. The ladder is more, it's basically not butting up against, but it's towards the back plane of this voxel space, okay? Now, tiles can't exist at the same space at the same time. They will override one another. So going back to the math editor, you can see that when I place this tile, it has a white border around it in the corners. You can see the white sort of bits that define the corner of your model, okay? And you can see that when I place this over the red tile, it encapsulates the whole tile. So when I click, that wall goes against the back of that red tile. When I place the ladder down, I want to do the same thing, but now the white border becomes yellow because it's going to replace, it's found a tile already in that space and it's going to replace it. And sure enough, when I click, that's exactly what it does. But I don't want it to replace, I want it to go against the wall, okay? So you just need to understand that that's why it's doing that first. Now, how in this case would I get around that? Well, because my wall is up against the back, what I can do is go to the tile in front and right-click twice to rotate the tile so that now it's up against the front, if you will, of the tile in front. So it looks like it's at the back of the tile behind it. Does that make sense? It looks like it's where I put it originally. You wouldn't know by just looking at it now. But more importantly, because it's not in this space, when I place the ladder down, it can coexist because I'm not putting the ladder here. I'm putting it on the tile I want it to go on. But because the wall isn't in this space, it's in this space, they can coexist like that, okay? So that's just, if you're working with ladders and walls and things that are at the edges of the voxel editor, like mine are, you just need to be mindful of how they work so that you don't run into overriding issues like that, okay? So this wall here, for example, the way I made it, got the wall and then went deliberately to the tile in front, rotated it round, and then drew it across like that. So these walls are actually the tile in front rotated round to the front, if that makes sense, okay? So this ladder can now butt up against any of these walls, or it should be able to, he says. Oh no, yeah, it's because I'm going to replace the ground in this case. That's why it was yellow. It needs to go up to 1, so it doesn't replace the floor. But you can see I can put this anywhere on this wall. It's not going to override any of the walls, okay? So that's just something important to know about how ladders work in terms of placing them in relation to other tiles, in this case walls. So now let's actually talk about how to make climbables work in grid. Let's put all of this together now, our models, our player character, etc. And let's actually make a climbable work. So this is going to be, as I say, for grid movement first. We'll focus on how to make a grid movement ladder. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our ladder first. So we're going to make sure that our height is at 1, so it's 1 above the ground, so it doesn't replace the ground tile like that. Obviously, it's not high enough yet, so we'll go up to 19, which is the height of my ladder, but I'm going to go up 1 more, just so it sits on the top, like so, okay? We'll leave it like that for now, okay? And then once you've placed your ladders down, we've built it, so it looks like how you want it to look. This is still not climbable yet, so what we need to now do is first of all select each ladder piece and turn on the climbable option, and you'll see this icon will appear. Do that for both or all, however many ladder pieces you have. Make sure they're all climbable like that. So you should be able to see this icon in front of all of your, in this case, ladder pieces, okay? This is still not going to be working yet as a climbable asset. So now what you need to do is link them up. So we've made them climbable, but we now need to link them up in the navigation so that the player knows what direction to go and how it works, etc. So what we need to do, first of all, is let's put our line back so we can actually walk to the ladder. Then what we want to do is select the bottom ladder piece hold down Shift and click the next ladder piece. You can only select 2 at a time. So if we had another ladder piece, you can't then hold Shift and click a third piece. It wouldn't work, okay? You then want to right click on the 2 that you have selected and select Navigation, Climb, and you'll see these arrows start to light up, okay? Then what you want to do is select the floor and then hold Shift and click the bottom ladder piece, right click, Navigation, Climb. That will create, it will do 2 things. It will add a light to your arrow at the bottom, but it will also add this icon here. We'll talk about that in a second. You then want to click the top piece of the ladder and then the top floor that you want to get off the ladder onto. Right click, Navigation, Climb. Okay. I just want to go through that process one more time just so you can see, without it being broken down, how simple it is. So going back to the ladder piece, go down to 1. So you place the ladder. Once you've made it, obviously make sure you can get to the ladder. Then you want to select a ladder piece, make it climbable. The next ladder piece, make it climbable. Then once all your ladder pieces are climbable, you want to select one piece and then the other piece. Doesn't matter the order you do this in, by the way. You could select the floor first and then the top ladder. Obviously, we don't want to select the top floor and then the bottom ladder. That's not how we want to connect the ladder up, okay? It's important that you connect them based on what piece can reach what piece, okay? So you want to connect the floor, the top floor, to the top piece of the ladder. So select them both, right click, Navigation, Climb. Then we want to select the top piece and then the next piece down, right click, Navigation, Climb, and then the bottom piece and the floor, right click, Navigation, Climb. So it's literally just going from either from bottom to top or top to bottom, just selecting 2 at a time, right clicking, Navigation, Climb. It's that simple, okay? When you've done that, you'll end up with a ladder looking like this. As long as your ladder looks like this, it will work. It should have 2 icons at the bottom and the top with a person standing in front of a ladder. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. But it should also have both arrows lit up in green going up and down for every ladder piece, for every piece that is the ladder itself. Okay? It's important to note that if you forget to turn on the climbable property, so let's just delete that ladder piece for a moment and put the ladder back. If we didn't make this climbable, i.e. we didn't turn this on, what happens when you select a bottom piece and then Shift select a non-climbable asset and then do right click, Navigation, Climb, is it adds one of these points onto the ladder, okay? Which obviously we don't want. Now, as I say, I will talk about what these points mean in a moment, but just understand that if this appears on top of your ladder when it shouldn't, it's most likely because you didn't make this climbable, okay? So make sure that is climbable. And then obviously, again, select the top and the top piece, Navigation, Climb, okay? So what are these points here? These are mount points. These are points upon which you, the player, can get onto the ladder. So you can either get onto the ladder at the bottom or you can get onto the ladder at the top. And the ladder itself, you can go up or down. That's what the green arrows mean. They mean the possible routes that you can take. So in this case, both up and down, okay? So if we go into game now, this should be a functioning ladder. So here we are in game. So if I walk up to the ladder, the climb prompt appears. So if I press C, then you can see that it's lined up the player character perfectly with the ladder using the preview that we used. So that's worked really nicely. We haven't had to do any trial and error, having to go back and forth between the game and the voxel editor, moving around the attach points. We've made sure it works perfectly via the preview model. We're not climbing the ladder yet, so you have to press the W and the S keys, or the up and the down arrow keys as they're shown here, but W and S will work as well. And then as soon as you get to the top, you just press up again and you'll automatically dismount. And then you walk around. And then when you want to get back onto the ladder, walk towards the top of it. The C prompt will appear again. Press C, you'll attach yourself to the ladder, press down, and then press down again, and you'll automatically dismount at the next dismount point. Okay? Now, before we move on to advanced things, I want to talk about the ladder. while we're at this stage, let's just answer a common question that some people have. Do NPCs use ladders? Okay, so let's take a look at that, and I'll explain how NPCs use ladders. So let's place Sarah into the map. What I'm going to do is select Sarah for a moment, and I'm going to go to her behaviors, and I'm going to select Seek Out Player, and I'm going to set the interest to 20. Okay, and I'm going to play the game again. So here we are in game, and Sarah should now be following me because I set her seek interest to the player. So if I go up the ladder, will she follow me? Yes. The short answer is yes, NPCs climb ladders. However, there is a caveat that you need to know to this, okay? What I'm going to do is change her behavior. I'm going to put it back to don't move around. Don't seek out the player. By the way, seek out player, you want to make sure this value, this also takes height into consideration. So I use 20 because this is a, well, actually it's a 40. So I'm surprised that works. But height does play into effect. If I made this like 5 and I was on top of the wall, she wouldn't go up the ladder. So this clearly does take height into consideration. So just be mindful that if they're not following you up a ladder, it might be because your interest range is too low, okay? But what I want to do is take that off for the moment and show you another way that NPCs will use ladders. Let's also give her an ID so I can refer to Sarah. So let's go back up the ladder. And now if I move out of the way, point to this tile here, bring down the console and type move character entity Sarah1, I think I gave an ID, and then self is what my mouse cursor is over, in this case this floor tile here. So as soon as I press enter, she should go up the ladder and stand on that tile. Okay, so you can also script NPCs to go up ladders as well, climbables as well. However, this is where the caveat comes in. If you don't script them, and if they don't follow you, if you just leave them as free roaming NPCs, I've never seen a free roaming NPC just choose randomly to use a ladder. I've never seen them just randomly go up a ladder. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, just I've never seen it personally. So as far as I'm aware, I believe they don't just randomly choose to go up a ladder. Even if she was standing right here, I think she'd just go back. So, as I say, your mileage may vary on that. You might find they do. So do experiment with it. But NPCs certainly can climb ladders. Certainly if they're following you or if you tell them to, they will use ladders. But I don't know if they'll do it of their own free will. But obviously if you need them to climb a ladder, then you can script them to climb a ladder. Okay? So yes, the short answer is yes, they can. Okay? So let's now take a look at, now we've got a working ladder in grid. Let's take a look at one of the other options that we have. So you saw when we were testing the ladder that we could go up and down the ladder using the arrow keys or the W and S keys, okay? However, what we could also do is we could select the ladder and go to the climbing settings again, down here, and we could turn this on, forced automatic climbing. What does this do? So let's turn this on for both. You're going to want it on all of your ladder pieces, otherwise when you reach a piece that has this off, it's going to suddenly change behavior, okay? We'll leave it as on for now so you can see what it does. Let's go back into game. So this is now a automatic or forced climbable asset, okay? So now what happens when we press C, instead of pressing any of the arrow keys, it will just automatically take me all the way to the top of the ladder. So as soon as I press C, player automatically just went all the way up the ladder. Same when I go down. If I walk up to the ladder and press C, I will automatically go all the way down, okay? So once you've got a working ladder, if you want to, you can turn that option on, and it will mean that when your players use ladders, they will automatically go all the way up to the top, and then when they use it again, they'll go automatically all the way down to the bottom, as opposed to having to manually press the up and down arrow keys. Obviously, that takes control away from the player, so you might want them to have, you know, the ability to choose whether they go up or down, so you might have that option off. So just be mindful that that option is there, that's what it does, and you can choose for your game whether it makes sense for it to be forced or whether to give the player control. what I really want to stress in this next part is something really important you need to know about ladders and how they work in grid, okay? So this ladder works fine, works perfectly well, okay? If we take a look, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. If we take a look at the ladder here, we can see that it's at a height of 20. And if we take a look at the top ladder piece that we're mounting and dismounting from, you can see it's a height of 40, which you can see is 20 times higher, not 20 times, but it's 20 voxels higher than the top ladder piece. Now, it doesn't look like it's 20 voxels higher, but that's because the top of this, the height of this ladder piece is not being measured by the top, it's being measured by the bottom. So actually what's happening in the engine behind the scenes is it's taking this coordinate and this coordinate and doing the ladder bit, the climbable bit, okay? So if we were to place another ladder piece down, let's first of all dismount the mount point. I'm going to put this back to 40 again. Wrong tile. There you go. If we put a ladder piece down again on top, so let's say at 39, okay? Even though this now looks like it's drastically higher than the wall, it's at a height of 39. This floor piece is 40, so it's still higher. This floor tile is still higher than this top ladder piece, because the top ladder piece actually starts here, which is just a fraction, it's a voxel lower than here. Okay, it ends there, whereas the floor tile starts here, okay? If we were to connect these up, so shift and, I need to make this climbable first. If we were to select that and that, obviously we need to link them. And then we select that and that, right click and link them. Okay, everything looks fine. All the arrows are lit up, got 2 mount and dismount points. Let's go into game, see what happens. So here we are in game, go up to the ladder, press C, climb up the ladder, get off at the top, walk around, want to go back down, get on the ladder, climb all the way down. Excellent. Okay. Now, let's add another piece to the ladder. Obviously, this is going to be a bit extreme, but it's to point out the issue. Okay. I'm going to add one more ladder piece to the ladder. So let's go to, what would it be, 56, maybe 57? Where are we at? Let's do 57, okay? So we'll place the ladder piece there, okay? Obviously it's wrong, but it doesn't matter, okay? The point is, this ladder piece now starts at 57. The top floor is at 40. So now we've got a situation where it's the opposite. Now our ladder is taller than the wall, okay? Because this piece was at 39, so even though it looked higher, it was still lower than the top of the wall. This one now is higher than the top of the wall, okay? What happens now if we delete the dismount point, grab the floor again, go back down to 40, put this back, select this ladder piece, and then shift select this ladder piece. Oh, keep forgetting. Select this piece first, make it climbable. Then select this piece, shift select this piece, right click, navigation, climb, and then select the top of the wall, and then shift select the top piece of the ladder now, which is at 56, right click, navigation, climb. It looks like it's worked, but there's a distinct difference, and see if you can spot it before I bring it up. If you haven't spotted it yet, the top ladder piece only has one arrow lit up, which means it's suggesting we can go down, but we can't go up. Now, that's actually not going to be the issue. Let's go into game and see what happens with a ladder like this. So here we are in game. So if I press C to climb the ladder, so I go up, up, up. I press up again, I can't dismount. Go down. Now I've dismounted. As soon as I went down, I could dismount. So already the ladder is not behaving as it should. Now let's try go down the ladder. So I go up to the ladder, press C. Great, I get onto it. I want to go down. I just get off the ladder. Try again. Go down. It's impossible to go down, because every time I get on the ladder and press down on the down arrow to go down, like it says, go down, climb, I just dismount. The reason for that is it's a very simple rule. Okay, if you just want ladders to work, the simple rule is your ladder pieces, the top ladder must always be lower than the surface you want to get off the ladder onto. So it worked when it was 39 because this was still lower than 40, okay? If we took this ladder piece, if we took this floor piece and we raised it twice, so let's just delete this and go back to the floor and go up twice. Is that what I wanted to do? No, sorry, go down twice. So it's at 38. If I place this floor tile here, okay, now we've got a floor tile that's at 38 and a top ladder piece that's at 39. So now, just by 1 voxel higher, this ladder piece is higher, okay? Now what happens if I select this floor tile, shift select this ladder piece and try and connect them? That's interesting. It suggests it's going to work, so we'll go into game and we'll just verify. It might say it's going to work, but we'll see. No. So it still doesn't work, okay? So maybe you can't tell from the icons 100%, but the rule is even by 1 voxel, the dismount surface cannot be lower than the top ladder piece, okay? As long as the ladder is lower than the surface you want to get off onto. Does that make sense? So it's really important to know that, because otherwise your ladders are not going to work properly, okay? So I can't remember if it works at the same height. So if I put this floor back, now this floor is at 39, as is the ladder. The top ladder is at 39, this floor is at 39. Let's try linking these up and see if that works. Let's just reconnect these. Reconnect these. Suggests it's going to work, but we'll have a look. So here we are in game. Let's try this again. Go up. Okay, so it might be that same height works, or I might have just got lucky. So when it comes to tiles being at the same height as the top of the ladder, your mileage may vary, okay? But it is just really important to point that out, that if you want ladders to always work, fail safe, just make sure that the tile that you're going to get off the ladder onto is higher than the Z coordinate of your top uppermost climbable piece, okay? By the way, this is only an issue with grid movement. None of this applies to free movement. It's just because of the lines and connecting the ladders up via the navigation, how this all works, okay? Let's now quickly move on to the other type of ladder that you can make in free movement, which is one-way ladders. And we'll also, in this video, cover overriding the climb animation as well. So we'll cover both of those in this chapter. So what we'll do is we'll place an asset that I made earlier. So again, we'll open this up in the box editor. This is a tile called pole, and it's going to be impassable. I forgot to change that. So this should also be impassable because it's a climbable tile. It's got an attach point on it called climb. Now, in the player model, there is also an animation which is custom. You won't find this in the predefined animations list. It's custom to this model. There's one called slide. And if we play it, it's just that one frame on a loop, okay? And it also has a climb attach point. So what I did earlier is I isolated that frame and saved it as a model called slide test, or you could call it slide preview or whatever. So what we can do is we can go into our pole model, click the configure attached objects button, select climb, the only attach point it has. The model will be slide test on its single attach point. Don't attach it in game. And now we can, I've already done it, so I don't need to move anything. But just to show you that what I did is I also did the same thing here. I lined the attach point up for this pole so that it worked with the player model attach point, okay? So that's what the player will look like when they slide down the pole, okay? So now we need to go to the map editor and let's make our pole so that you could only go down it, not up and down it, okay? So what you want to do is go to the tiles, select your pole. Again, we want to go down to floor level 1. Place the first piece of our ladder, pole. Go up 20. And because this pole is the same height as the ladder, I'm going to go up to 39 as well. And it will still be lower than the top floor piece. The same rules apply for the ladders as it does with the pole. Floor, make sure the top floor is higher than the top piece of your, in this case, slidable object. Now what you want to do is select the pole itself and make each one climbable. So you get your ladder icon back. Obviously the arrows are not lit up yet. But now comes the most important bit. In order to make a pole, in this case, one way, okay? The order is important. So whereas before, when we linked this ladder up, it didn't matter which two pieces you selected in which order. For one way, it is absolutely vital, the order upon which you do them. So in this case, we want to go down the pole. We don't want to be able to go up the pole, okay? So first of all, we don't want it two directional. We want it so that you can only go one way. And we want to make sure that that one way you can go is not up, but down, okay? So what you want to do is connect them up in the order that you want the player to move. So in this case, down. So we're going to start with the top floor, shift select the top piece, right click, navigation, climb one way, okay? Nothing will happen with the arrows yet, but you'll see your mount point will appear. Then select the top pole piece, the middle pole piece, right click, navigation one way. Now you'll see the top piece has a down arrow. Select the middle piece and the bottom piece. Middle piece, bottom piece, right click, climb one way. Now the middle piece has a down arrow. And then finally select the bottom piece and the floor. Right click, navigation one way, climb one way. You'll know it's worked because there'll be two clues. First of all of the arrows are going down. Great, that's the one way we're going to go. But also you can see we can mount at the top, but we can't mount at the bottom. There's no icon at the bottom. That's fine. That's telling you that you can't mount from the bottom. You can't get onto this thing from the bottom and go up. That's the point of a one way. You can get on at the top. You can't then get on at the bottom. You're going to get on at the top and go only in this direction. And then when you get to the bottom, you'll dismount, but you won't be able to mount from the bottom, okay? What we then want to do is we want to select each ladder piece and make it so that we go automatically down, because obviously we don't want the player to manually climb down the pole because it's a sliding pole. The whole point is it should be the player slides down the pole. So we want to make sure forced automatic moving is on every pole piece. Obviously, if you had the middle piece with that option off, then they would slide down and then you'd have to climb manually down the middle bit before you automatically slid down the bottom bit. So if you wanted to make a pole that was sticky or something like that, you could do an effect like that if you wanted to. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to make it so that when you use this climbable asset, i.e. the pole, not the ladder, we want a different animation to play. We don't want the player to use the climbing animation. We want them to use the sliding animation that we've got our test for here, where they're just gripping onto the pole and slide down it. So what you do for that is you select each climbable piece, and just above the forced automatic climbing option, there's a climb animation box where you can type in the name of an animation that your character has. So obviously it goes without saying this needs to exist on your character model. So we can type slide into here, click off, select the next one, type slide, click off, select the next one, and type slide, press enter, click off, and then just double check that that's saved. So click each ladder piece, make sure it says slide, slide, and slide. And that now means that when the player uses this climbable object, it won't use the climb animation, it will use the slide animation. So that's how you basically define what animations each of your climbables use. So if you wanted to have a different animation for a ladder compared to climbing a vine or something, then you would have, you'd set your vines to whatever the animation is you want them to use. Okay. So if we now save this and go in game, we should have a ladder that we can go up and down and a pole that we can only go down automatically. So here we are in game. So we'll go up the ladder all the way to the top, walk over to our pole, and as soon as we get onto the pole, we should automatically slide down with the slide animation, like so. And if we walk away from the pole and go up to it, there's no way to get onto it. There's no icon telling me I can climb it. I can't press the C key, it doesn't do anything. Whereas if I go over to my ladder, which is two-way, I have the C prompt, so I can go up this ladder. I can also go down the ladder, so it's two-way. Whereas the pole will only accept climb when I'm at the top. If I press it, I go all the way down, like so. So that is how to make one-way directional assets. And obviously what we could do if we wanted to is we could make a ladder one way, so you could only go up the ladder and down the pole. In order to do that, you would do it the opposite way, where if we deleted for a moment all of the pieces, you would just click grass, that would go at 0, oops, and then you'd have your ladder piece at 1, next ladder piece at 20, and then make both of them climbable. But then the important thing is the order upon which you add them. So we'd start with the bottom floor, and then the bottom piece of the ladder, right-click navigation one way, then the bottom bit and the top bit, navigation one way, and then the top bit and the top floor, navigation one way, and then you've got a mount point at the bottom but not at the top, and the ladder only goes up. So now we've got a situation where if we stand at the foot of the ladder, we've got a C prompt, we can climb it, go all the way up, but we can't go back down because it's up only. There's no C prompt here, and pressing C doesn't do anything. So this is a one-way up ladder, and then the pole is a one-way down. Okay, so that's how to make one-way climbable assets. Let's now move on to how to make climbables work in free movement. Okay, so here we are in a free movement map, and I've just deleted a section of wall where our vine wall is going to go. So in the voxel editor, I've created a copy of the wall, but put some vines across it. Okay, this is going to be our free movement climbable tile. Okay, now free movement, it's a lot easier to make a climbable ladder or asset or whatever it is you're going to climb. A lot easier. But there are some pros and cons, and we'll talk about those once we've made a climbable work. So let's start with just how to make a climbable work. So what you need for a climbable tile in free movement is just one thing. You just need to add custom collision. So we'll add a box or a cube, and then we'll make it one thick, and then we'll just move it up against the wall. In fact, I'll clip it through the vines, it doesn't really matter. We'll have it right up against the solid wall. And that's it. Click save, and that's all you need for your climbable asset in free movement, because the player will use this as a climbable surface. However, there is one thing you need to do in the map editor, which is once you've placed your wall down, so let's place the wall down. That needs to be at 1. So there's that, and we'll go up 20. So there's our vines in the middle of our wall. We want to select each piece and make it climbable on, climbable on, climbable on, and climbable on. Click save, and done. So obviously, we haven't linked these up. We haven't gone through and done the whole right-click thing, you know, navigation. But that's for the navigation. That's for grid. All you need for free movement is climbable. This needs to be on all your climbable objects, tiles. And the climbable tiles need to have a collision in front of where you're going to climb. In this case, in front of the vines or in front of the wall. Okay? That's it. That's literally it. It goes without saying the player will not use the navigation. Obviously, the NPCs will, so you might still want to link these up, make it so that they have mount and dismount points. so that if you've got NPCs that follow you, although I don't know if they do in free movement because you would be off the grid, but, you know, if for whatever reason you wanted the NPCs maybe scripted to go up your vines, then you might still want to link them up to the navigation, but we don't need to use the lines anymore. So let's go into game and just confirm these work. So here we are in our free movement map. Now, the way free movement ladders work is you just literally have to walk up to them. You don't even have to press the C key. Just keep holding the forward key. You'll automatically mount and dismount at the top. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's no way to actually get back down by pressing a key. You just drop down. And if you obviously walk into the ladder as you fall down, you can attach and go back up like so. Okay, but that's it. And then the advantage to ladders in free movement is you can also move laterally as well, you know, vertically, diagonally, horizontally. You know, you've got the full range of movement of all the connected collisions. And as soon as you move either off to the side or off the top, you'll get off the ladder. If you hit the bottom, you'll dismount the ladder. So free movement ladders are really simple to make because this is all you've had to do is make the model, then put a collision in front of it that just covers the front, and then turn it into a climbable, and the player will climb the tile. Now, a couple of things to know. First of all, cons wise, pros is that it's very easy to make, and when you've made one, you can go diagonally and horizontally. So if you wanted the player to be able to move sideways for a puzzle or something, they can. Cons, however, they can't be made one way because that option doesn't do anything in free movement. You can't override the animation using the setting in the climbable editor, you know, where we type slide in. That doesn't do anything in free movement. And what else doesn't work in free movement? Forced automatic climbing doesn't work. So you have to use the arrow keys to always climb in free movement. Okay, so just to show that off, go back to the map editor, select a tile piece. So this option doesn't do anything, this option doesn't do anything, and one way, obviously have to select two. Hang on, let's see what's going on here. And this doesn't do anything, okay, in free movement, okay? And it's probably just because climbable models in free movement are quite a new thing. So these options, I'm sure, will be added to free movement over time. It's just that for now, they just work very simply. But just understand that free movement ladders, while you can make them work very easily, they're not as feature rich, shall we say, as the grid movement ones currently, okay? So there's a few cons to know there. But bearing in mind, you can still write scripts. So for example, you could still use this override animation command. So you could override animation player, climb, slide, for example. And then whenever you climb something, it will use the slide animation instead. That will still work. So you could still script it before you climb something. So maybe you have a zone or something just in front of your climbables that override your animation. Yeah. So you could use the, the zones box. You position that there and you'd set it so when you enter it, it runs a script, and that script will override your animation so that when you use this climbable, it uses a different animation. That's one way around the issue, okay? But anyway, that brings us pretty much to the end of this video on climbables, because I've pretty much covered everything there is to know about them. There are some settings. I haven't really played around with them, so I advise you to play around with them, see what they do. But if you go to experimental, there's some free movement climbing settings here. I think it's to do with the grab distance and things like that. So play around with these numbers and see what effect they have once you've got climbables working. But I haven't really played with them enough to cover them, but they're there if you want to, see what they do. But other than that, there's pretty much nothing else to cover with ladders. I've gone over how to make them in both grid and free movement, and how to make ladders one way and automatic and things to be aware of and all of that. So you should be well set now with all the knowledge you need to make ladders and climbables for both grid and free movement. So with that said, that'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial.